Welcome to the Big Time Thinking Podcast. This content is brought to you by taking thousands of arrows right in the back and doing something about it. Quit winking at girls in the dark.
Get them to sign on the line which is dotted.
And get ready to scale your sales, your dealership, your business, your life, your family, and your friends with Big Time Thinking.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
Without further ado, here is the founder and CEO of Big Time Advertising, Terry McCauley.
Oh, have I got your attention now?
Buckle up. Reality starts right fucking now.
Big Time Thinking, we're back and at it today. Got a great podcast for you today, and it's an interesting one because I, this past weekend, was up at a Notre Dame football game in South Bend. Had a chance to see some family, friends, and all kinds of things. And when you get behind that steering wheel, it's amazing how many thoughts can get in your head. And as you sit there and think, my mind started wondering about this podcast coming up, and I wanted to talk about people skills. I've always been told I have great people skills. As we've said, most skills take a lot of work. Right? Some we have to work at more than others. Some come naturally, but you still have to work at all of them. People are always like, Terry, you're so outgoing. You have such great people skills, but they never know the mind and the heart behind what they get and what they see. I would say sometimes, believe it or not, in my own mind, I work at people skills because there's things I do that I think potentially can make me a terrible people person. With that being said, if we're going to be serious about being good in business in general, whether it's a dealership, sales especially, we've got to spend some serious time talking about, do you have good people skills? We need good people skills because we use them in everything we do. I think it'll help your marriage, raising children, influencing and having great, reliable friendships, and being friends is a two-way street, just like marriage, just like everything. And then in business, learning to work with many different types of personalities. You're going to have to develop some serious quality people skills. And I think too often when we think of people skills, we think of someone who's really personable. Okay, oh man, the guy talks. Well, I can tell you, and we'll get into some of this, but I can tell you a person who talks too much and never shuts up doesn't have great people skills. Okay, so people skills is much more than just being able to talk all the time with someone else. We've talked about being an active listener before, but we're talking about genuine people skills and how you develop them to where we realize 100% of everybody's never going to like you or trust you. But if we can get that number to 70%, creep it on up to 80%, we have a better opportunity to be more successful in everything we do. The reality that there are evil people, no matter how good a person you are, that's okay. It's just like the old 10% rule. What do we do with 10% of the people that drive us nuts? We don't spend 10 minutes thinking about them. So with that being said, as I thought about people skills, I think they're abysmal today. I think people are losing their people skills, and I think it's generational. I think it used to be that at one time, we as people had really strong people skills, but we were always weak at technology. But if you think about it today, the opposite is becoming more and more true. Obviously, because we live in an age where, guess what, that mobile phone doesn't leave our hand. And I think it has lessened the need for human interaction. And because of that, our people skills are becoming worse and worse and worse. It is an issue. It's an issue because at the end of the day, business is done with people. Yeah, you can send an email. Yeah, you can send a text. And we'll talk about this, but some of your people skills are going to have to translate into how you text and how you email and how you write. But people skills are just like a muscle, right? If we're strong and have a muscle, how do we get it there? We used it and we worked it out, right? But we no longer really have to use our people skills for a lot of things. We break up with girlfriends over a text, right? I don't, but like people today do. Oh yeah, hey, thanks for everything, but let's move on. I mean, there's no people skill in that, right? There's no that inner anxiety we've all had to develop to confront another person who you love, but you feel like you've been wronged or sinned against, and you got to sit down and confront it, and you want to do it with compassion, but you want to be honest, and you don't want to be emotional. Those are people skills, overcoming different obstacles. So we need to spend some significant time for ourselves to stand out to others. And the one way I think we can stand out to others is with better people skills. And now's the opportunity to strike and become a superstar in your business or your dealership, because you know those around you are lacking people skills. So this would be an easy area, I think, to become really strong and start to kick some ass. Okay? So just like anything else, we got to study it, we got to practice it, and then we got to return to plain old, you heard me talk, big time thinking at the end of the day is just using common sense and courtesy, right? People skills can absolutely be developed, and they can be redeveloped. And I have to redevelop them sometimes. Sometimes I get lazy, okay? But with common sense and courtesy, our people skills can get better. I will tell you, I don't know what the number is, but I've got to say 85% of career success for you will depend on people skills. And why will they depend on people skills? Because your promotions come from other people. I think about this all the time. How many of you guys in your high school had a band geek and you all made fun of, and you've found them on Facebook and they're multimillionaires and you were a dick to them in high school, right? Because we decided not to use people skills all the time. How many people do you know, can you think of, that have become extremely successful? You can't pick up the phone and relate to them because when you had the chance to influence them and win them, you lost them. So I absolutely believe and understand and have an insight into the importance of always having people skills. It's not just a light switch you turn on and off. Oh, I'm at work now and I got to have good people skills. This is something you have to work at every single day of your life. And for me, I work at it every day, because for me, sometimes I get home and I'm so engaged all the time with people that I can sometimes be nasty to the ones I love the most. If my mom listens to you, she'd be like, "Oh, he's right. He's a dick," So, and I do regret those times. And with that being said, we've got to really, really strive to have great people skills. And if we can, I'm telling you, 85% of your career success will depend on people skills. When I think now of my growing and thriving ad agency business, or anywhere I've been, the more of my clients, more of my referrals have all come from people I've known, liked, and trust over the years, and the referral business, and it's because of people skills. It's not because necessarily I'd like to think it is, that my pay-per-click ads are better than the competition. It's that at the end of the day, they do trust me, and they know Terry will find a way to get it done or care, right? And that's a people skill. So I did jot down a lot of notes. I don't know how long it'll take us to get through this. We may have to do a second podcast. Maybe I can get through it in one. But I do want to go through them. Just some things that come to my mind, and things that you can do to make yourself have better people skills and things we can work at. Number one is going to be ditch your gadgets, right? And I think about this over time. It started out with a Walkman, right? The old Walkman cassettes and big ear gadgets. Or headphones, not ear gadgets. Wake up, Macaulay. But we've got to ditch all our gadgets. Over the evolution of time, we've seen people that are gadget people, and when you're around other people, stereotypes aren't great, but stereotypes for me are great insights into why they're stereotypes. Okay, so the goal of good people skills is sometimes you just want to be perceived as normal. Okay. Remember the movie Revenge of the Nerds, or they were techie, gadgety guys. It's cool and super awesome, but it's not normal either. So if people have gadgets, you got to think about ditching them, especially now when it comes to our cell phones. It's even way worse. But we've got to learn to not read and send texts or emails when we're with a customer or with a potential customer. And I know you think you're being sneaky, because I've done it. Oh, maybe they won't see me. I'll look real quick. They do see it. Okay. My wife and I work at this. We now talk and we go out on a date. Hey, are we going to leave our cell phones in the car? Yes. And I will tell you 100% of the time when we do that, guess what? It's a much better dinner, because it's easy for one of us to start telling a story, and you see your partner glance down at a phone, and to get those feelings of, oh, I guess what I'm saying is not interesting. Okay. And 9 times out of 10, that's not the reality, but how our customer or the person we're with feels when we do certain action, you can't argue with how they feel. So we've got to ditch gadgets. It's the same with clients. Do you think they don't see it? They do. Even I've got to work it. I got this Apple Watch, and every time I always thought I was being more discreet with it, but it'll go off. And if I look at it, I've had clients go, "Oh, is that important?" And I'm like, "Damn, that's not good," right? Because I understand the importance of making the ones we're with important. Love the one you're with. We've heard that cliche over and over. And when we are distracted by technology, when we're with customers, it breaks not only our momentum, but it also diminishes your customer's momentum. Okay? So with that in mind, the number one thing is we've got to ditch gadgets, folks. There's a time and place for it, but I want my customers to know I'm all in. It's not about anybody else but them right now. If it's a true emergency, someone will get a hold of us. So with that being said, as we move in, the one thing I've learned and work at all the time is when you're with another person and you want better people skills, number one, you got to make it about them, right? We're going to make it all about our customer, them. Talk about what the customer likes, not what we like, okay? Because it's not about us. It's about the customer. And to do this, we actually have to listen, don't we? We have to be active listeners. So this is something I actually have to work at, and I think a lot of people have to work at. If you're an extrovert like myself who likes to talk, for me, this is part of the people skill I have to actively work at. Okay, I can't tell you how many times I've sit in a business meeting and someone interrupts someone else that's trying to tell you what they're saying. They one, act like they know what they're going to say, or two, they just wait their turn to talk. If you're that person who just waits your turn to talk, you're not actively in listening, you're not engaged, and you're obviously not giving the person you're with the energy that makes it about them. That's a people skill, right? If someone in front of you shares, even in a business meeting, something they feel or know, and you just interrupt and wait your turn to talk, you're a horseshit communicator. You suck at it. And I have to work at that because sometimes I hear someone say something, I'm so excited to tell them what that means to me or in my life or vice versa. And I've learned I'm turning people off when I do that. So I practice it. I do work at it. When I leave a conversation, I'll get in my car and I'll go, man, I think I cut that guy off twice. And some people will be like, Terry, you way overanalyze everything. You're right, I do. That's what success is. It's these moments between the ears when you decide in business you want to be better at something. That's my focus. That's my edge because I think about it, right? So just like an NFL player has to watch film over and over. Oh man, look at the cut. You cut, a half a yard early, or your head didn't fake a little bit to the right like it was supposed to. Our business the same way. We've got to pay attention to how we are with our customers. And if we're not making it about them, we've got issues, right? We do. You can turn a customer off with even important information you have to present because you were not making it about them, right? That's key. So remember, you could have something very interesting and that you need to say that really will benefit, but if you've cut them off, they're not gonna follow what you're trying to say. But if you can learn to make it about them, you will absolutely project more authenticity. You will sound more warm. You will show the concern and personality and actually a professionalism, right? So as being a great communicator, we want to think about these things on how we can do it. So what are some things we can do to make it about them? Well, one, give the customer 100% of your attention. So that means putting the gadgets away. That means not reading. Maybe someone handed an article out in a meeting and you're glancing at it. Maybe you're making notes and that's distracting, but you've got to give your customer 100% of your attention. Now that I think about it, I know we need to make notes, but I like to make notes after a meeting because I don't think you're an active listener if you're constantly writing down when you're listening. Like, are you that? Now think about that. A 30-minute meeting, you can't retain the most critical information from it. I really think the only time I really will take notes is if I'm in a talk on a specific subject that I know are like things that I've never, ever heard in my whole life, and I might write one of those down so I can reuse them. But in general, if I'm giving 100% of my attention to my customer, there's nothing to write down. I'll do a follow-up email and say, hey, this was my understanding of everything you said. I hope, and we'll resolve it that way. Because I'd rather hang on to their every word, everything they're saying, than to look down and jot a note and miss one of the most important words they say. I will tell you, and actually I've blown this before. Back when I was in seminary school days, we used to do youth retreats for kids in 8th grade. Here's a great example. I was the leader of a talk, and I'll never forget this. So there's probably 35 to 40 kids on their confirmation retreat. They're in the 8th grade. Teachers standing around and all my own peers who were working the retreat. And I opened up something for questioning about prayer, and we were talking about the power of prayer. And we were, I said, when are some times you guys have felt the power of prayer? Well, I was in my mind not being an active listener, a kid raised his hand, and I called on him. And while he was talking, I, being the elder, thought what he was saying really would have no bearing on what I needed to do next. So my mind was on my notes, trying to pay attention to what we were doing next with the group because I was leading this major retreat. Well, I kid you not, this kid goes, he mentioned one of his relatives that had died, committed suicide actually, and the prayer didn't work or something. He was saying that his prayers, he felt like weren't answered. And my first thing when he was done talking, I just go, isn't that awesome? I kid you not, dude. This kid just spilled his beans, and I go, now isn't that awesome? The whole room, I'll never forget, looked at me like, dude, are you even paying attention? And it was obvious I wasn't. I've never been more embarrassed. And that was like the first time I realized, dude, you got to listen to what people are saying to you because you're missing a lot of points and you're making yourself look like a fool. So if you just wait your turn to talk without listening, you're going to struggle. And I've seen that in emails. I've seen people respond in an email without reading the email and assume they know what you're saying and totally miss the whole point of an email. So we've got to give 100% of our attention, and we got to hang on to their every word, right? So that's why I mentioned email too. Like if they write a third of an email and you only read the first sentence and think you know what the rest is about, and you just wait your turn to talk, you're not getting it. You're not making it about them. Another way to really make something about them, and this is the secret ingredient, is ask more questions. When they finish speaking, and you've let them finish, ask them some follow-up questions, right? So, okay, and then it's a great way to validate what they've just said to you. You might say, hey, David, I really appreciate what you just said, but is this what you meant by this? Right? So I'm getting him back engaged, or her, by follow-up questions. So ask questions that are engaging. So what I'm saying is when we listen to them, we got to listen with the intent of understanding. We want to understand what they're saying, and we don't want to listen with the intention to just reply. Okay, that's key. That's huge. If we're listening to understand, we're making it about them. If we're listening to reply, it's about us. Okay? So even myself, I got to work at this. When I'm in a meeting and one of my graphic designers or animation or video guys has something to tell me and I'm just waiting to reply, I'm typically not understanding what he's trying to tell me or she's trying to tell me. So we want to listen with the intent to understand, not with the intention of having a reply. The other part is we want to maintain a professional and warm tone, right? And that's key too. Sometimes we've had a bad day, our tone's just off. You want to maintain professionalism, and professionals, speak with a warm tone, and they speak politely, directly, and to the point. These disciplines will draw customers to you. If you're able to do that, customers will naturally be drawn to you. Practicing these same people skills in other areas of our life, like our marriage, I promise you will have a positive effect. If you're struggling to communicate with your partner, do you not actively listen to them, right? And I'll be the first to say, sometimes you're just not in the mood to sit and listen, right? But you have to. It will help your personal life. I promise you that. So after making it about them, my next little tidbit of advice, so we're going to ditch our gadgets, we're going to make it about them. Next, we're going to give fewer speeches, and we're going to ask more questions to engage the customer. So it kind of follows up with how we make it about them, but now we're going to talk about giving fewer speeches. I think too often when we're with customers, we rehearse everything we want to say instead of asking more questions to engage our customer. One of the ways I land a lot of my clients, and I'm proud of this, when I show up, and I've hired salespeople, hey, are you ready for the sales meeting? Yeah, well, what PowerPoint? I don't have one for this one. Well, why not? Because I'm not going in there and I'm ramming everything I have to say down their throat. Yes, I know they need my services, but I'm going to go in and listen to my customer first. And I'm going to ask a lot of questions and engage them because I'm going to build trust, because I want to use good people skills and earn the right to present my product. All right. It's just part of that road to the sale. So I'm not showing up to give a speech to a customer. And if you're that person who's just dead set on that's how you give it, you got it wrong, man. I'm going to ask more questions and engage my customer. I would do that with your employees too, right? If you're ready to give them a speech on behavior sucks and you want to change, ask them questions. Don't give a speech as to why it's terrible. Ask questions that lead them to arrive at the same conclusion that you want them to, right? So if you've got employees that are consistently tardy and you want to change that behavior, and you just come in there and give a speech about it, I'm here to tell you it's not as effective as if you're able to ask a question. Hey, let me ask you guys a quick question. If you're flying to Cancun and your flight leaves at 7 a.m., is there any chance you would ever show up at 7:01? No, I would never do that. Why? Ask them again. Why? Well, because it's really important. I love vacation. I'd be so juiced. I'd be so excited. Okay, so I'm just curious, why is it that we treat our job as not as an exciting thing? Why does it not get the same respect? Okay, do you see what I'm doing there? And that's an easy example. And there are others. I'm not going to give a speech. I'm going to ask questions that can lead them to draw the same conclusion. Okay, and I'd say, hey, we spend more time at work than we do with our own families 9 times out of 10. So, and then I'd say, you could go on to more things about being on time. I could go on and on about how it's rude to think that everybody else can get ready for you on time, but you can't. Like, it's about you. So I wouldn't pick on people, because I think that raises people's guard and makes it uncomfortable, and that's not a people skill. People skill is just asking questions and staying professional so that you can engage them. So with engaging questions, we're going to ask questions that will convert them potentially from a boring monologue, but to a win-win dialogue, right? So customers, when you first show up, they've got their guard up. They don't want to share anything with you. Well, if you just give a speech, you think they're going to share stuff with you? No. So, and I can't tell you how many times I walked in, a guy goes, hey, listen, I'm really busy. I got about 5 minutes. And the best feeling in the world is when I leave an hour and a half later. And you know why? How I do that? Because I engage them and I listen. And sometimes it'll be just glancing around the room. And I see what they got hanging on the wall. Or I see a picture of a family. Or I'll watch what they're wearing. I'll look at a ring on their finger. I'll pay attention to small things. And I'll figure out where they're a graduate of. I'll figure out how many kids they got. And I'm going to engage my customer because I'm trying to find our degrees of separation so that I can find my angle. So when I do present my product, which is for you guys as dealers as a car or a vehicle, it starts with asking more questions and not giving a speech. I just bought a hot tub, and I'll tell you, it's interesting. I wanted a jacuzzi hot tub, and I ended up buying a bullfrog. Now, I'm not going to bore you with my hot tub shopping, but if you know me, I do tons of research, and I decided jacuzzi was number one on customer satisfaction, best ratings. But I went into and I knew a lot of what I wanted. I had a couple questions, walked into my local jacuzzi dealer, and the guy didn't listen to a word. He just started giving me a speech, and he didn't even know what I wanted. I was so turned off. I walked out the next day and spent way too much money the next day at a competing dealer. And he called, hey, what happened? I thought you were going to buy from me. And again, I'm polite. Just said, yeah, we're still thinking about it. And little did he know I've already bought, and it was sitting in my backyard. So give fewer speeches, ask more questions. Another tidbit, and again, this is the hardest. So the next tidbit of advice is learning to hang on to their every word, okay? And so how do you do that? What do you mean hang on to their every word? So eye contact becomes a big part of it, right? So when a customer is speaking, we want to make eye contact. I'm amazed at how many people don't, but I will assure you, if you're staring at someone with a relaxed face, not an intense face, but you're looking at them, they will naturally know you're hanging on to every word and you're paying attention. Then as you're doing it, nod in affirmation if you've got a nod, right? Lean forward. These are subtle little body language. Make sure your arms aren't crossed. Lean forward. And then the key is never interrupt them. Ever. Him or her, don't interrupt. Let them finish because you're hanging on to every word. The esteem your customer will end up having for you will shoot to the moon like a rocket ship. And I'm telling you right now, it's the main way to get them to really trust you. Hang on to their every word, lean into them, nod with affirmations, have a follow-up question with it, and I'm telling you, you'll slay it. So that's key. Hang on to every word that someone's telling you. The next one is professional language, and this is another one I have to work at because I cuss way too much. I mean, I do. I do work at it. I was raised not to cuss, but I was that second oldest of 7 who was always the wild child, I guess, or the one that's willing to push the limits. And that's why I'm always happy to see on these Facebooks and social media that people who cuss a lot are more honest. I'm like, sweet, I get an out. But when we're talking about people skills, I do realize that it shows a lack. They always say it's a lack of education when you cuss, and I know it. But I will tell you that the F word, and I'm getting off topic a little bit, but the F word is awesome. You can use it in so many different instances that it just is the perfect word, and it gives great emphasis. But I get it. So when we talk about professional language, there's a time and place for everything, right? And we can get into mirroring. Even if you have a customer who does swear or cuss a lot, we should still maintain our professional language, right? It's not an invitation for us to sound like a maniac, because what we don't know is, again, I'm always talking about referrals. We don't know what they're going to say to others about our professionalism. So we want to have professional language. There is little that really diminishes our people skills faster than unprofessional language. And so that includes, and this is tough for Generation X's, the millennials, because we all have slang that we use with our friends that isn't professional, okay? So we want to make sure we're not using slang that comes in and out of popularity. We don't want to have careless grammar, right? Even when we're speaking, not just writing, because our ears and our minds are so. I will tell you, the human body is the greatest computer chip ever invented. We don't always cognitively process everything, but the mind does, even though we don't absorb it. We know when we're hearing someone with bad grammar, right? Another part of professional language is we don't get into gossip, and that's one that's been hard for me to learn. And I think as you get older, you get wiser. So you younger guys, stay out of gossip. You know, the old rule of thumb: treat others as you'd like to be treated, and just don't talk about other people. Don't be down with OPP, other people's problems. So that's professional. If all you're in there doing is spreading gossip, do you think they're going to trust you with their stuff that they're going to want to share with you? And I will tell you, I've had customers share with me some things they have no business sharing with me, and that's a tremendous responsibility. Two of them really good friends, and they share something. I can't share that back and forth. So I take that with a badge of honor, not to get into the gossip, and try to keep it as professional as you can. So that's a professional language. But I will tell you, unprofessional language is a people repellent. It does turn people off. Really watch our language. Now I realize that sometimes in extreme cases, it's really possible that you will become so offensive and distracting during your presentation that a customer can't focus on what you're trying to sell. So really watch what you're saying. There's times I get off on a tangent and it just doesn't make sense what I'm doing. And something can be offensive to someone and you don't even know it. It can be an off-colored joke that we all think's funny. So we know that we should avoid politics and religion as a rule of thumb, and just stay professional. Work on your language. Sometimes record yourselves. I will tell you, listening to my podcast, I'm learning as I go. I'm trying to get better. If you played my first podcast versus now, I think you would argue, man, he's getting a little better at this. It's because I'm listening and I'm critiquing myself more so than other people. So let's start using professional language. The next one is a key, is we've got to use the right tone, pace, and inflection, okay? So I'm big on tone, pace, and inflection. So I always say in communication, we never get what someone means, we only get what they say. I think that's a brilliant line, right? We never get what someone means, we only get what they say. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, tone, just tone. Listen to the difference in these three different ways of saying the exact same sentence. All right, let me take a look at your trade. Hey, let me take a look at your trade. All right, I'm going to take a look at your trade now. Okay? Which one? The first one? Hey, I'm going to look at your trade now. Okay? Or, let's say you come to agreements on terms on numbers. All right, looks like we got a deal. Congratulations, we got a deal, right? So tone, right? And then pace and inflection. Inflection is just that. Do you put the emphasis on words that matter? And this is over the phone, especially when you don't have them in front of you because they can't get your face expressions. But we want to have the right tone. If someone says, how's your day going? I'm having a good day. I'm having a good day. Which of those two would you say is really, truly lying to himself, and which one's really having a good day? I'm having a good day. Hey, Terry, how's your day? It's a good day. Hey, Terry, how's your day? It's a good day. All right? So that's inflection and tone. The second one, you would always immediately go, man, he's having a kick-ass day. That guy's awesome. So inflection and tone matters. When I have a customer ask, how are you doing? I want to be warm. I want to have people say, it's going great, man. How is your day going? Right? I'm asking questions like we said earlier, making it about them. So we've got to do that, right? we all know who Ronald Reagan is, and I say avoid politics, but he was known as the great communicator. So yeah, Ronald Reagan was the great communicator, and he always came across, of all the presidents, in my lifetime, and I haven't been able to study the rest because there's not as much film, he was always, he was an actor. His inflection, he paid attention to the backdrop where he's standing. He was great at delivering things because the guy spent a lifetime practicing these things, right? Doesn't mean in person he was a great people skill person, but when it came to inflection and tone, guys, there's probably no one better at that level. So listen, I do have a lot of notes left, and so we are definitely going to make this a part 2. Wrap up this part 1 of people skills, and we'll pick this up next week because I think it's a great topic, and I want to get the rest of my notes in because I think having great people skills is absolutely key to being successful in business. But just to wrap up what I talked about today, 1, remember, 85% of career success does depend on your people skills. We're going to ditch our gadgets. We're going to make it about our customers, not about us, right? We have to. We're going to start giving fewer speeches. We're going to ask more questions to engage our customer. We're going to hang on to their every word, what they're saying. We're going to lean in. We're going to nod with affirmations. We're going to start using professional language. We're going to clean it up, okay? And we're going to use the right tone, pace, and inflection, right? Study this part. Practice it. And if you're not doing it at home with your spouse, then you got to work at it, and as do I. I'll raise my hand on it. So, people say, hey, Terry, your kids are great kids. Well, I try to have people skills with them. I'm teaching them people skills because I will tell you it's the number 1 survival skill. It's so important. Let's make it a part 2. Let's wrap this up. Guys, go have a kick-ass day. Remember, I want you to be big time every time.